All right. 7:01.
Feel bad. I just almost asked where Heather was.
Of course, I have it. Did I miss Todd, or did he just join us?
Todd just joined.
Just jumped
Okay.
on.
All right. I think we have everyone, right?
Nope, now all the attendees are jumping on. Here we go, right at 7. I forget, do I bump them up to panelists now or after we do the formalities?
I'm sorry?
We bump them up to panelists now, I forget. Or
Yeah.
we wait till,
We
yeah.
pump them up and then we do the little speech.
Okay, all right, get in here.
Oh, there's Todd.
Did we interrupt your workout, Todd?
Okay, that is everybody joining at the moment. We'll be going to reading the start of the meeting before you take over, Sarah.
Yes, please.
Okay. This meeting of the Historic District Commission will take place in a webinar format through Zoom. The chair of the commission is Sarah Moriarty. Host of the webinar is building officials. Staff attending this meeting include Peter Zavinglis and Linda Galetta. Anyone speaking should state their names prior to speaking each time. The panelists in this webinar meeting will be the commission members and the building staff. Panelists who would like to comment on an item should indicate such by using the icon to raise hand at the bottom of the screen. After a panelist raises their hand, they will be able to comment one at a time when called upon by the chairperson. Panelists should mute their microphones until called upon. Panelists calling into the meeting by telephone may raise or lower their hand by pressing *9. To mute or unmute your call, press *6. To make a motion or second a motion, commission members can raise a hand and be acknowledged by the host or chair. To vote on a motion, commission members will be called upon individually by the chair to vote. The public can participate in the meeting during the public communications agenda item. The public will be asked to raise their hand during public communications if they want to speak at this time by using the icon to raise hand at the bottom of the screen. The public will be called upon by the host one at a time and will be able to speak during this time. Attendees must identify themselves before speaking.
Thank you, Peter. All right, so I will call this meeting to order on December 1 at 7:03. And I believe Bill is actually appointed as an alternate. So for this meeting, I'll move him up to fill our vacant permanent member seat. And if Todd can please read the call. Can you see it, Todd?
We can't hear you, Todd, for some reason.
You there, Todd? Todd, can you hear us?
No.
No. All right, let me text him and see what's going on there. Oh, he was texting me. He has no audio. He's working on it.
You want me to read the call? I can read the call.
Sure, why don't you read the call? Thanks, Don.
Dear Michelle, please publish the following public notice for one insertion on Monday, November 23rd, 2020. Town of Groton, notice of public hearing, Historic District Commission. The Historic District Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, December 1st, 2020 at 7 p.m. virtually via the Zoom platform to hear the following applications requesting a certificate of appropriateness. HDC 20-72, 15 Gravel Street, Mary and David Rodriguez owners, Peter Springsteel applicant, windows and fencing, PIN number 26191841248, HDC 20-73, 11 Fort Rachel Place, John I. Cerisia Jr. owner, Mark Camo applicant, new single family dwelling and site work, PIN number 261-806-394-220. A Zoom meeting link will be posted to the town's website meeting calendar or can be attended by visiting www.zoom.us. Webinar ID 858-7514-0927, password 042814, or by phone 1-312-626-6799. Applications are on file and available for public inspection during normal business hours at the Planning Department, 134 Groton Long Point Road, Groton, Connecticut, dated this 23rd day of November 2020 at Groton, Connecticut. Todd Brady, Secretary. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact Linda Galetta at 860-446-5982. Sincerely, Peter Zingletis, Manager. I'm sorry if I'm butchering everybody's name. Manager of Inspection Services.
Thank you, Don.
Okay,
Oh. Are you there now, Todd?
yeah.
There's just
Getting
a
a lot
little
of
bit of
echo, though.
feedback. That's all right.
Yeah, there's tremendous amount of feedback.
Okay. Let me,
Well, I'm gonna quit on the computer here.
okay. All right. So everyone's all set? I can call the first.
Yes.
Okay, so I will call HDC 20-72, 15 Gravel Street, Marion David Rodriguez, owners, Peter Springsteel, applicant, windows and fencing. I think I saw Peter. Maybe I didn't. Is Peter here? I'm running through the list of panelists and I don't see him. Did I miss him? No?
He just jumped on, but he just jumped off.
Okay.
He's back on.
Oh, I see him now. He jumped off again. It looks like he too is having some trouble.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. There you are. Hi, Peter.
Sorry about that. I had to run back from another meeting, but I made it.
That is okay. The meeting is yours.
Okay. Is Peter gonna show the documents that I submitted?
Yep, he's scrolling now.
Okay, great. So this is Gravel Street. Forget the number here. Let's see, it should be on the application. Peter, if you scroll back up, I can give you the address. 15 Gravel Street. I was in for an informal, I don't know, about a month or a month and a half ago. And we're proposing to make some changes to the windows. And we're also proposing to do a new fence enclosure on the left side of the house. So we can see, go back there, Peter, the house. Number 15 right there. And scroll down. These are the existing building elevations. And there's two windows in the front of the house over in the lower left-hand corner. Double hung windows with shutters on them. We're proposing to lengthen those. And we're also proposing to remove one of the windows on the right side, the L on the right side, one of those double hung windows. And I think you'll see that in the proposed. Those were the existing conditions. This drawing here shows where we're proposing to have the fence. You have to go back to the site plan there, Peter. You're jumping around.
I know, it's getting away from me here. There we go.
So that's a photo of the existing two windows that we're talking about. So in replacing these windows, we'll be getting rid of those storm windows. So that will help the visibility of what you're seeing, which I think is always a good thing in the historic district. There they are again, they're 6/6. That's the house next door. But there should be the fence. You had asked for, you wanted to see what the fencing was like on the house next door. You can see it over there on the left. So our fence will come off of that. Well, it's actually set back. You can't see where our fence is going to be in this photo, but we're coming off that side of the yard. So the fence is behind that shrubbery, the new fence.
Do you want to go back to the fence at the beginning? I think it was probably the one.
You're moving around a lot,
There-
Peter. I can't-
There we go.
So that's the fence that we're proposing. That's the look of the fence. And I know, Eric, you had wondered about the type of PVC that we're proposing. And I've got a sample of it here. You probably can't tell, but it has a very dull finish on it. So it's not going to be the type that stands out as a shiny PVC finish. So that's the fence that we're proposing, and this is the spec here. It's 42-inch high. There's a gate. If you go back to the site plan, I can show you where the gate is. You went by it, Peter. There. So we're gonna have a gate at the end of the house in the driveway there. They're trying to create a fenced-in area for their dog. And then there's a little piece that'll come off the garage in the back there.
So those are the two gates, and then is the fence going to run between the two gates?
There's just a fence that's running from the house going to the neighbor's yard.
Oh,
on
I
the
see it
left side of the
now.
house.
All my little people tiles were blocking that, sorry.
Okay. And then there's a gate in the driveway itself towards the back of the house. And then there's a little section between the garage and the neighboring property to the north. So that's the fence proposal. And you can see in the neighbor's house to the south where their fence is. Yeah, it's that red line there, I believe. Looks like it's encroaching, but I think those property lines are off.
Okay. If anyone doesn't have any questions on the fence, Peter, could you go back to the as-built for the windows? I'm sorry, not the as-built, the proposed.
Okay, Peter, what are you gonna do about the shutters?
We were gonna put new shutters in.
To just match the existing,
Yes,
but longer?
correct. Yeah, you can see them in the drawing. There's the drawing. So the two windows on the left side, lower side of the drawing, those are probably about a foot taller than the existing windows. A little bit more, and they're specified as an Anderson, I think it's 400 series, but we've lost the picture.
Bear with me. Hang on a second. was trying to expand it and I ran into a problem.
Okay, on this particular drawing, this is the right side of the house. We are adding another square window on the second floor indicated there. These are Anderson A series windows that match an existing one that's there. And down below, you can see where we're removing a window. So that'll all be clapboard. I'm not sure why it's clapboard's not reading on these drawings. And then you can see the specifications for this, the new double hung windows on the front of the house are Anderson A series, 34 by 72, 6/6 simulated divided light. Would be painted AZ casings, historic sill, and shutters.
Does anyone have any additional questions for the applicant?
None from me.
I'm good.
Eric and Bill, any questions for the applicant?
None from me, Bill.
All right, if no one has any additional questions or comments for the applicant, thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
I will ask if anyone in the audience would like to make any comments for this application. Would anyone in the audience like to make any comments against this application? HDC 20-72 is closed. So I will call HDC 20-73, 11 Fort Rachel Place. John Cargia, owner, Mark Mo, applicant. I think I saw Mark in the audience at some point.
I'm here.
There you are. All right, you have the floor, Mark.
Okay, so does Peter do the navigation or do I share a screen or how's that work?
You can take over if you want.
Okay, yeah, I might as well. Cannot share a screen while other participant is sharing.
All right, there you go. You should be able to now.
Oh. Okay. Okay, so we've been through everybody can hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So we've been through a number of preliminaries and we're back for the public hearing. And this is 11 Fort Rachel Place. So as you know, this site is undeveloped. It's unique. It's in the middle of this developed area of Fort Rachel, and it rises from an elevation of approximately 18 up to 55. So it's quite an aggressive ledge outcropping that rises up to beautiful views over Mystic. It probably hasn't been developed because of the nature of the difficulties in the challenging site. So in you know, with a site like this, it takes two things. It takes a vision by a client and the ability to fold into it the aspects of historic appropriateness with the architect. And I think hopefully both of these have come together. So what I did was I made this contextual board where I went around the neighborhood, all around the neighborhood, the immediate neighborhood of 11 Fort Rachel, and video archived a lot of the buildings and the surroundings to understand the form and the materials used. So predominantly they're federal revival in nature and in form. And so we think in the middle here is our thumbnail of our elevation that you've seen before. So in borrowing from roof pitch lines and materials, we've tried to come up with a kind of a more refreshed take on what the federal revival would be. But at the same time, you know, using materials that are very much in keeping with what's there. If you were to zoom in on this board, which is a part of the document submitted, you would notice that these existing historic structures have classic clapboard. This structure here has a myriad of application of pilaster, vertical shiplap siding, flush, 1/8 gap, 2/4 gap, it's called. And then up in the pediment, there's shiplap siding as well. There is also kind of a myriad of forms and fenestration to pick from around here. So I don't know that the fenestration was too much. You know, in the regulations, it states that new construction, of which this would be, though it's in the middle of a historic area, shall be made harmonious with the immediate historic environs. So in coming up with the overall form, width, shape, spring lines, and pitch, we tried to be harmonious within those environs of what we are surrounded with. At the same time, we're not copying or trying to replicate any trim details, because the regulations say not to do that. They say, however, new construction is discouraged from false pretense to antiquity. So instead, we're looking for kind of a fresher, cleaner line of what that would be. On the second page, I blow up and move into some of the surrounding structures to show the examples of the shiplap that's used on them. Something that came up within the couple of preliminary hearings that we had been to was the roof. And we want to use a metal standing seam roof. And you know, the roofing is one of those things that it's kind of like, what have you done for me lately? And in the past 50 years, the fiberglass-based asphalt shingles have stood the test of time, and they can go for 40 to 50 years. And they're generally accepted everywhere in all districts. We want to use the standing seam metal roof. It's something that you would see more apropos to a coastal shipyard building. You can see that there's a standing seam metal roof on the old bank here. There's also one here in the district as well, and they're all over the place. Another comment that had come up is our balustrade. If I go back to this picture here, which I'll get into the elevations in just a second, we have a negotiation of this 30 plus vertical feet of elevation with a stairway that takes you from the lowest level up to the upper terrace. And there's openings in it that are a grid of 4x4 heavy duty wire, black. Black goes away. It's almost like it's not there. Black fencing, things like that. And it's not like we made this up. I mean, coming down the hill into Mystic, and right here is the Chelsea Bank, that same wire, not in black, but in kind of a different color, has been used, and that guard has been there, as far as I know, for decades. So it wouldn't be the first use of a gridded wire within the district. So I put this board together to show how we approached looking at the neighborhood and trying to understand the many elements that we're dealing with, and the many different styles, and from basic down here on the lower part, basic functional utilitarian shipyard structures. Here another shipyard structure with very large over accentuated scaled fenestration and doors, and then the very classic things that are around us. So I'll minimize that and go to our plans. So we've seen these before. Coming up into the site, we have a very low level that we pull into a garage. And then here you can see the basic shape of the structure, our standing seam metal roofs. we're using a combination of clapboard, and then in the field centric between the window spandrels, we have the vertical shiplap, which this really goes away. I mean, the CAD shows the lines for what they are, but they really go away. This is the east facade, which most of these facades practically are not even noticeable from the public way on the Groton side. You would need to go to Red 36 to actually see this facade because it's so high above you on Water Street. You probably wouldn't see over the ledge to see this, but nonetheless, here we have this staircase that comes up and negotiates the 30 vertical feet plus of negotiation, the openings and the guards between them, and then the overall shape and style of the structure. This is the west elevation, which is completely hidden by vegetation. And then the north, you'd have to go completely to the top of the hill where all of the parties take place on this property, from what I understand, to get to the very top part, to see really what would be the north side, which is quite unassuming, if you will. Let me see what else I had opened here. And then I had the storyboard, which I presented before, the kind of more, in terms of what we're thinking about, I'll start up here on the top. So this detail up in the attic, we've got this very classic McKim Mead and White roll in. This siding comes in and rolls back to the windows that are depressed back about 20 inches behind the major facade here. You can see the shadow lines I cut in on that. The window frames are to be black against white. And again, I mentioned that we did this at Bravo, and people seem to like that. We like that. In between the field, we've got the vertical shiplap siding, which would just be really, it would come across as like a flush material. This is a sample of the wire guard, but ours would be black, as I mentioned. And then the standing seam roof, as you can see in sort of a charcoal color, would be across here. So I did the hand rendering because the hand rendering shows the softness of what would really be representative of the final product versus the CAD drawings, which you plot those babies out and it comes across quite stark. So that's a storyboard that you've seen that really shows the context of what we've come up with, within the Fort Rachel area. I would also go on to say before I rest that I have firsthand information that primarily there are 3 direct abutters on Fort Rachel Place that have seen the designs and support them. So and I don't know if they're here or not. My client is here tonight. I believe one of the neighbors is here tonight as well. And we have not had any opposition so far to what we've proposed, and we think that it's very much in keeping with the spirit of the handbook, which is this is an undeveloped site, which calls for non-historic false pretense to be applied to it. Nonetheless, we think we've come up with a structure that basically borrows from a lot of the vocabulary of the vernacular that's within this area and just puts it forth in a much fresher way. So with that, I'll open the floor to any questions on a technical level if anybody has any.
Thank you, Mark. Would
You're
you do me a favor and just go to the beginning of your application and just slowly scroll through it in its entirety so I can look through it one more time?
The application.
So the documents that you submitted to
Okay.
the HDC.
Yep. So this is what I call the context board,
Okay.
which shows our site. And then these arrows point into the buildings that surround us. And then these are the thumbnails that come into that.
So I guess I'm just looking for the application that you submitted to the HDC
Mark
from
them at their
the
two
beginning
different
to the
meetings.
end.
I think I have those documents. I don't think, Mark, you have those.
Oh, should I stop sharing, Peter?
Probably, yeah, we'll go back to the other one. If they're gonna pop to yours again, we'll switch it over again, I guess.
Okay.
So, what you wanted, Sarah?
That's exactly what I wanted. Thank you. If you could just slowly scroll through all those.
Can we shrink it down a little more? Is that good enough?
Say that again?
Do you want me to shrink it down a little bit more? or
You
is
could
that-
shrink it down just a little bit. I'm on a smaller computer today, so it's kind of hard to see the whole screen.
I seem to have a problem bumping it perfectly to the center when I shrink it.
There you go. Thank you, Peter. Does anyone have any questions or comments for the applicant? I mean, my comment is I think you did a great presentation, Mark, and I do like the design quite a bit. But I don't know if anyone else has anything that they want to add or discuss or ask you about.
I mean, I made my opinions pretty clear during the pre-apps. I guess instead of going into another rigmarole on that, I got a couple comments. I just am concerned about two things. On a technical note, the application just lacks any list of materials, any information on windows, doors, siding, stone veneer, any of the metal, anything with respect to what the materials are to be used. Secondly, again, I think the design is great. I don't like it where it's going. And I'm not sure if that's gonna, that I'm going to be able to change my mind on. However, even if the design was changed, I'm also concerned about the mass of the structure. And I understand the site you're working with, and I get what you're trying to do. It concerns me that you're going from an elevation of 30 to what appears to be somewhere between 75 and 80. So you're going to have a structure that in total from bottom to start in some view somewhere is going to be 45 to 50 feet tall, which in context, that's taller than the building I'm building on 3 Water Street from bottom to top. I mean, that's a massive structure, and that's going in a residential neighborhood. And based upon your site map, that's going to be towering over the property located below. Now, if that person signed off and given their consent, so be it. But you're looking at least 30 feet of structure elevated above them, then towering over them again. And from that view, I don't know where you had the elevations, but I guess the south view or the southwest view, that's where you're really going to see that or that turn to the right more, which is, again, just a very, very tall structure. And we complained as a committee about a 20-foot tall, 22-foot or 25-foot, I don't remember what it was, tall garage across the street in that property. And now you're doing something double, I mean, I don't know, maybe triple the size, probably not that tall, but I can't tell because you don't show the elevation on the peaks. So again, I don't know, but I'm guessing it's 75 or 80. Is that right? I mean, based upon scale.
I don't think it's that high. It's, we go up to a top elevation of 55 plus the story and a roof.
You got 61 right there, starting at 30 at the beginning of the roof. So you're 30 feet just to the start of the roof. So again, in context, that's starting below my first floor, going up past the mansard. It's just, it's big downtown. Even after I built it, I think it's big. I mean, this is huge from some angle, and it's just tough to tell on the property what that angle is going to be in context with the other houses and the other buildings in the neighborhood. I hate the word monstrosity. I think it's an awful word to use, but that's large in comparison. So, I would like to see more information on the materials. I would like to see the mass and the scale brought down in context with our opinions on the neighboring property. But I really, in total, I wish I could see it more correctly placed in the property visually, maybe not correctly placed in the property in some three-dimensional view or something to be able to make me feel better that it's not going to be this extremely tall structure sitting on the side of an already tall outcropping. And it's tough to tell from the elevations.
Any other comments?
Bill Ferguson, none from me.
Okay. Todd or Don, do you have any comments?
Just for me, I join you, sir. I like the look of it. I understand some of the concerns, and we do need to have the list of materials.
So there are some materials listed on there, but I think that we've been able to resolve the materials that if we feel that there's a deficient material list, that in the motion that we make, whether opposing or granting, assuming the motion carries, you can make it that they must submit the material list to Peter Zanarini. Tom. So since we've been able to work that out with the town staff, I'm not terribly worried about that. If there's a specific material question, because there's some on here, then perhaps, you can ask Mark that while we have him.
I did have brand names on a previous slide that I presented 2 different meetings ago. It looks like it got left off this, but I do have that complete list, and it was a part of the preliminaries.
Okay.
Yeah, Sarah, I'm not particularly concerned whether the siding's Boral or Hardy or Cedar. That's not something.
I understand. That was a minor concern. The other ones were what was more important to you. I just wanted to make sure that we understood that we can figure the material situation out now that we have that workaround.
Right, but I also, while I highly doubt that they're going to go buy, Lowe's discount vinyl windows, like it's not going to happen. I get that, but it would be nice to know what is going to be used. Again, is it an Anderson? Is it a Pella? Is it a Marvin? I don't care.
Okay. Well, I think we can navigate that.
Okay, I may I say something?
Of course.
I think that with regard to the concerns about that have been expressed about the height, that you have to take into context that this house is working its way up the side of a hill, and so that its overall height relative to grade, that grade is a constantly changing factor with this house. So the grade is coming up with the house, so that although you can take a measurement from the initial grade, the base of the garage, which is like the lowest point, to the ridge on the roof, For the most part, the house is just working its way up the side of the hill. So I think the overall impression or massive scale of the house is not in fact going to occur, nor is it going to appear that way. I also think that, and I think this is somewhat illustrated by the board that Mark submitted with this application, and which you still see when you look at the drawings of the house and you see the vertical shiplap alongside the clapboard. If you go down to that red house that sits down on Water Street, which has the same kind of material, it's in his board. You know, you see the vertical shiplap there. It's never going to even look anything like that. It still just sort of jumps out at you. It's a very different kind of material. But if you go, Peter, if you scroll to the red house on Water Street, right there, and he highlighted it to the left down in the bottom corner there. That's the same material, and it basically doesn't. You don't see the actual boards at all, and the gable end up there is the same material, and it basically almost looks like a flat plane. It just doesn't jump out. You see it also, I think, to the left over there in that house with the air conditioner in the window. So I still think that the actual drawings do not accurately portray what this house will truly look like aesthetically. And you know, I'll harken back to the guidelines to the extent that they exist, in which they say, you know, excellence of new design is encouraged, which is compatible with its characteristic environments. And I think that is what this is an example of.
Todd, just to go back to your point for a second, I don't disagree with the use of the vertical shiplap. I think it's a great use of a material that isn't widely used anymore. My comment to you on the height, though, is if you look at the south elevation, which is like 4 slides down, Peter, or north, south, or up. I mean, this is a view, if you just zoom out. My point is, this is a view that you're going to see somewhere. So I understand the site. I've walked on the site. I lived across the street from the site. I get the site. I understand what Mark's trying to do. This elevation, though, starts at 30 and ends at 75. It's a 45-foot tall vertical side that, if it's not obstructed by, I don't know what, a boulder or, we can't take into account the landscaping. You have a structure here that's taller than 3 Water Street, seen from some view. Unless you're telling me it's not seen, and then so be it.
Well, that gable, the very top gable, is beyond. It's not in the same plane as the garage. So back to Todd's point, the mass steps back with the topography. And where do you want to go? High Street, on the corner of High Street, on both sides of High Street, both on the left of the church and on the right of the church, you've got these massive colonial revivals on a top of a rock that are 3 stories high. This is what the sea captains did. It's all over the place. This sort of, and we think delicately, finds its way up the hill in a progressive mass that moves its way up. There's trees on the top of this site that if you're down on Water Street and you look up, you have no relative scale as to exactly what height is what. And those trees would be above this house. It's all perception of scale.
Agreed.
And that's our business, and that's what we do best as architects.
And I think that the stepping back point is a good one when you talk about massive structures, because this house, I think, will appear far less massive than either your building on Water Street or the other building, Navarro's building on West Main Street, where you have a massive flat plane straight up to the top, and this will not appear that way at all. I mean, you can see there are 3 or 4 different planes, one proud of the other, and less so as you work your way up. So I hear what you're saying, Eric, but I really don't think it's going to look like what you're visualizing it's going to look like. Especially when you look at this elevation, it looks that way somewhat, but I don't think it's going to appear that way to the actual viewer.
I think another valid point is the actual viewer. You know, as you walk by Eric's building or Navarro's building, you're street level and you're looking up. This isn't on a sidewalk. No one's going to be walking in front of this building looking up. You might be across the river looking at it, and it's not going to nearly look as big as if you were standing street level looking up at it, which is why I don't have any concern with the height of it.
Enough.
Anyone have any other comments that they want to discuss?
None from me.
Anybody else before I ask the public? All right. Would anyone in the public like to speak for this application? Would anyone in the public like to speak against this application? All right, HDC.
I would like to speak. I would like to speak.
Oh, let me
Aye.
figure out.
I would like to speak. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you just state your name?
Yes. My name is Frank Fulchiero. I live across the street from the proposed construction at number 10 Fort Rachel Place.
All right, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So my name is Frank Fulchiero. I live at 10 Fort Rachel Place with my wife, Christine Mulholland, who's owned this property for 38 years and has lived here continuously. Personally, I've also lived in Mystic for 49 years and seen a lot of change. We'd like to categorize our comments as general comments, not for or against. We have good relations with John Correa, and we welcome any new neighbors. We realize development is invariable, and we also appreciate the challenge of designing a house at such a unique and historic location, the site of a former fort during the War of 1812. As background, Fort Rachel Place is unique in the town of Mystic, and the people that live here and walk by it, I think, appreciate that. It's right outside the downtown bustle, but it's a short street. It's very appealing in its historic appearance, which we would like to retain. One side is kind of unique in that one side of the street is zoned R7, used to be RS12, and the other side is zoned MDD. So it kind of splits the street in two, but we see it as one whole entity with one whole appearance and sticking to the same historic district standards on both sides. So we would like to keep it that way. And we have some feedback on the proposed design, and we hope it's taken in a positive manner. Could the town staff please bring up slide 27 with the west elevation view? Okay, that's going to be almost directly across from our house. By the way, no one ever approached us regarding feedback on this project. So our first concern is the height of the building. The zoning on this side only allows 30 feet above grade. You realize there are challenges to the grade here. Our property is actually 3 feet below the 20-foot grade line. This construction is going to start 30 feet above grade and then go to another 76 feet. So the top of the roof is going to loom almost 90 feet above our property. Now, it's not true that no one's going to see this, because anybody that walks by on our street, and we have a lot of people walking by because they love it, is going to see pretty much about 80 feet above street level. So we know there's a challenge, and I know that you've talked about the pros and cons of the height and the design. And we realize it's a unique terrain. One thing we'd like, if possible, is if the mass can't be reduced, to have it somehow broken up or hidden. For example, there's a nice wooden fence in front of the office building at number 5 with some evergreens. Maybe that could be extended in front of this house, so it's not just this giant mass in front of us. Actually, when we look out our second story window, we'll still be looking about 40 feet up. So it's going to hide the sun and the moon, but you know, that's development. So we're not complaining about that. We would just like our view somehow broken up. We also don't think that the metal roof belongs on the street. That's way out of any kind of parameter that I can think of. I realize that architects have to be innovative and that owners want something special, but I think this is going too far. And we also think that the metal fence is going too far. You can't see it on the side, so I'm not sure if it wraps around. But those are characteristics that don't belong, they don't belong on the street. We have a very special street with very unique visual elements, and I think this is going to push things too far into other directions. So the problem is, once you open the door, then somebody's going to say, well, hey, he did it, why can't I? You know, so I think it's important to try to keep what Fort Rachel Place looks like the way it is, with some introducing some maybe novel elements. Now, I'm not sure what those blue things are at the roof. I hope they're not lights, but 3 or 4 of the views show some blue trapezoids near the roof line. And I have no idea what those are. I hope they're not lights like some of the restaurants have. And our final concern is not having external lights spilling onto our house. I know when the office building at Fort Rachel was built, they were kind enough to put some light shields on all the parking lot lights so the lights would not spill over onto our house. So we hope our suggestions are taken in a positive manner by the architect and the commission. This is a large building. It's probably going to have as much impact on us as almost anyone. And also, it will have an impact on the people walking up and down the street. I don't think it's true that they're not going to see it because it's behind a rock. So that's what my wife and I have to say. And good luck and Godspeed.
Thank you. Mark, do you want to respond to any of those comments?
Well, the blue is not lighting. I was looking for a rendering technique to show the fold in as that facade rolls in toward the window. Again, love CAD, hate CAD, which is why I did the hand rendering. I appreciate the comments. I would definitely love to meet with Frank and discuss possible ways that the landscaping can contribute to his concerns. And other than that, I think I've stated my approach and my perception of the property several times, and would love to work with any neighbors to make sure that their concerns are addressed as we move forward.
Mark, so see, did you reach out to the neighbors or not?
Pardon?
Did you reach out to the neighbors or not?
I didn't. I think that's a little self-serving. So I didn't reach out, but I know of one of the neighbors that had reached out to several neighbors and had gotten some really good feedback about it. And I felt good about that it wasn't me going out there and trying to do that, because a lot of times I found over my 30 years that they'll tell me what they think I want to hear. And it, it's a little self-serving, I think, when the architect goes knocking on the door.
I'm just confused because you started by saying you had support and you'd reached out to the neighbors and 3 or 4 neighbors supported it.
I firsthand
on that street, and Frank said you didn't reach out to him. So now you're saying you didn't reach out to anyone.
And I didn't say that I did. I said that I have firsthand knowledge of the support of three specific neighbors to the project.
For firsthand knowledge by not talking to them, but by hearing from someone else that they had thought that it was a good project.
By one of the neighbors who spoke with them.
How about his concern about the lights? Do you have any, we haven't really gotten into where, if you're going to have any external lighting in terms of restricting the view onto other properties?
Oh, yeah. We would be very careful about any lighting on the project, that it's full cutoff, really only very low level landscape lights, just for safety in footpaths and things like that. But otherwise, there won't be any overarching floodlights or anything like that. That would be a consideration of light pollution.
So, Sarah, I still reiterate my same concern, which is you have a picture here which doesn't have enough information, and otherwise we're allowing something and then pushing forward with pieces, or we're allowing it and saying, present your list later, and we don't have any ability to pick or choose. I mean, if you look at applications in the past, for the past 2 years I've been on this, like they've been filled with much more information relative to all the pieces of the project than this one, especially this being a new construction and, with some of these concerns.
So I'm not concerned with personally, I'm not concerned with the materials, but Peter, can you scroll through the elevations again, or the elevation views again? So the elevations are on there.
But
so Eric, specifically, what is it that you're looking, other than materials? Because what is it that you're looking for on the plans that you're not seeing?
the materials, I mean, my concern here is you've got materials mentioned, stone veneer garage. Okay, that's great. Is it going to be cut granite? Is it going to be brick? Is it going to be polished marble? Is it going to be...
Well, we can take care of that as a contingency to the approval. So that's why I'm not terribly concerned about that piece. That's what we were working with Deb and Tom a couple weeks ago. So with that component, we can request that Mark submit a detailed material list, and that material list can be reviewed, and his approval is contingent on that.
Okay.
That was kind of a result of those hearings that we had to keep continuing because certain materials were being left off. So in working with Tom and Deb, that was what they had suggested that the other commissions do and that we can do as well.
And that I agree with. I think the time we made Cody come back because they didn't have the condenser specs, or the time that we made Jay Millis come back over the condenser specs, I agree with you. I think that's ridiculous. But here I'm saying you have an entire structure with no detailed information, and we're saying you're either going to approve it or deny it, and they're going to have to come back and then submit the materials later. It just goes in the face of everything we've been doing.
Well, what I'm saying is that we can approve it or deny it, but if we approve it, it's a contingent approval based on him submitting a detailed spec list. And then that spec list is reviewed by us to make sure that it meets the requirements that we were looking for. Or at least that's how I was instructed how we should proceed with these things.
I mean, this is basically a variation or a change in our basic approach to this. But I think that from my standpoint, you've identified some boral siding, windows, that kind of thing. I don't think there's anything going on here that's overly unusual, where if we get the list afterwards, we're going to have any particular reaction. I mean, the standing seam roof, vertical shiplap, those kinds of things are pretty common. I mean, I think that Mark has to submit a complete materials list, and and we should make that a condition or a condition of the approval that it submit an acceptable list.
Mark, what are your thoughts as a regard to the size of the structure versus the neighbor's concern that it's going to be looming over his structure?
Well, I understand the concern. Of course, I envision the structure like nobody does because it came out of my head. It articulates well. It not only articulates in a step fashion, both laterally, but in front of you in the frontal plane of the X. There's a lot of push and pull on the facade as well. And when you look at an elevation, you see a two-dimensional plane in front of you, and it's hard to understand the give and take of the different planes that are moving back and forth. And it really will not be an ominous form up on the hill. I don't design ominous forms. If you're familiar with my work, and you all are, there's a lot of modulation that goes with that goes with the articulation of the different masses within the structure. And I think that going back to the hand rendering, it's going to be a very soft, much more subtle structure.
I just don't understand, or I can't visualize it. And I'm pretty good at visualizing things, because using this as an example, you were talking about stepping it back, but you start the garage at 30 feet, you step back approximately, call it 10 feet, and you hit a structure that's then 30 feet from that garage. So you're 40 feet within 10 feet of the front of that side, that west side. Then you step up another 10 feet or 5 feet or whatever that difference is in those two roof lines. So that within 15 feet of the face of the garage, you're going from 30 to 75 or 80 on the elevation. So 45 feet within 15 feet. And I respect what you're saying. To Todd's point, that's Central Hall within 15 feet. That's larger than Bravo. So yeah, I agree. You design pretty structures, but those two as an example are massive from that view. They're the same thing as this. They're actually smaller. That's the crazy part.
I would say drive down West Main from Allen Street, and just as you turn to go right on High Street, there's a Revival right in front of you, and take a look at it and take a look at its height. And that'll answer your question.
Yeah. I know that house you're talking about.
It's very tall, and it's frontal, and it's all one plane, and it goes straight up. It's within the historic context. It's what they did when they built on high rocks. There's a view there.
Mark, if I look at that drawing that we're looking at right now, where you see the small tree to the right of the house, and you see the topo, is that as high as the rock gets?
No, it actually keeps going up a little higher to the right of the tree.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So if I want this report, Rachel, I'm looking at where the house is going to go. I've got this huge rock in front of me anyway, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
No, Todd, the rock is from Water Street. So if you're standing at the base of Water Street at that red house and you're looking straight up, I agree with Mark's point, which is you're not going to see much of the house. That's correct. But if you come down Fort Rachel, if you go past Frank's house on the right, past Hardesty's house, you're going to see this thing directly in front of you on the left. If you live in the White House that we approved the driveway, this house is going to be 15, 20, whatever, 40 feet behind him, up another 40, 50 feet. As you make the turn down Fort Rachel through the marina and everything, you're going to see this house. Only when you get under the rock outcropping where the Korea's house is, the red one, is when you're going to stop seeing this. But that entire Fort Rachel walk, that entire Fort Rachel view, you're going to have a 50-foot structure sitting right there. See it visually from every side. And to build this thing, you're going to have to clear cut the whole thing. So it's not like there's going to be a lot of vegetation hiding anything. It's all going to be gone because you can't get the trucks and you can't get the stuff. And it's not going to be hidden inside it.
No, that's not right. There's actually, that I can remember, having walked the site many, many times, there's just some scrub trees that are growing, but the bigger specimens are on the, well, they can't grow because they're on rock, but around the border, the site does enjoy an enclosure of some very good sized trees that do not have to be touched. But getting up into the heart of where the house is going to go, it's just grass and ledge outcropping that rises its way up. There's really almost no clearing that's got to take place on this.
And I agree with that part, Mark, but I did, like I said, I lived across the street for a year. I walked up there.
Yeah.
So I know the site very well, but to the right of the garage, to the south, where you have that vegetation, most of that stuff's going to have to go. The vegetation in between 9 or whatever the number is, I forgot, and this house is probably going to end up getting destroyed or have to go. The vegetation's irrelevant because we can't take it into account. I'm just saying you're going to have this very tall structure sitting there, visually seen for the majority of Fort Rachel, making the corner through the marina. Only until you get up to the Korea property will this thing possibly start to go down in size. It's not a 20-foot tall cape. That's all I'm saying. It's double, if not triple the size.
I don't think a 20-foot tall cape belongs here.
I'm not saying that does. I'm just saying, as an example, I've said it 3 times and I'm not going to say it again because I'm done after this, but I do not think something of this mass, this size, this height belongs in that location with the surrounding properties and the sizes they are. I just think it's a disservice and a disjustice to the neighbors in the neighborhood. And I think it's a disjustice to a site that has an historical meaning and context that's important. And I think your house is pretty. I do. I like it. I think it belongs in a field in Stonington, not there.
So as I've said, I'm not concerned about the size, the roof. I like the fencing. I am concerned that the neighbor's concerned. Can we go back to his elevation? What does he see? The west elevation? Was it the west?
You would see the west, yeah.
The west. So this is what he's looking at. And where does he start? Like, so, I mean, I'm assuming his lot grade isn't the same as this lot grade, right?
No, Frank's probably down somewhere around, Frank, you still on? 10, I would guess. Because he's technically still in the flood zone.
Frank's probably down where it says west elevation view. That's probably the height.
No, he would be lower than that because that's elevation 30 approximately. He's probably more down 10. So he's 30 feet below the start of the house, let's call it. Ignore the garage.
Frank's raising his hand to speak if you want.
Yeah. The street is 20 feet in front of our house. And our actual property is about 3 feet below that street. There's something.
Is Frank talking? Because I can't hear him if he is.
Can you hear me?
Oh, now I can.
Okay, so basically the street is at 20 feet and our property is 3 feet below that, about 3 feet below that. But it's really not just us, it's also the people that walk by. There's really nothing to hide this house that I can visualize from here because the rocks are on the other side. And if you look at the top view, there's nothing hiding this house. Now, I'm not objecting to the size, but if there's some way to make it smaller or to break it up more or to put something in front of it. I know the Korea office building has a 10-foot high fence made out of wood, not vinyl, with some evergreens. And you really can't see the office building behind it very much, even though it's fairly large. So I'm just a little pissant here, but if there was some way to hide the bulk of the house, I'm not sure how, in a creative manner, I also have to say that it seems like a lot of the design work went into the front and not the back. We see the back. So it just seems a little kind of not as creative as the front. That's just my amateur opinion. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Frank. So, Mark, when I look at this and you say that it's going to be stepped back for Frank, when Frank looks at it, so can you just, because I'm just looking at it on paper, can you describe to me what he's going to be seeing? Like,
Yeah, if I could, if Peter, if I could share my screen again.
Yep, hang on a second. Yep, you should be able to go ahead and share. Yep.
Okay. Okay, what I want to point out is this is Fort Rachel Place right here, okay? And then the lot starts over here, but there's a flag, it's a flag lot. It comes in and goes around this property and comes around like this. And it starts its aggressive approach up like this. So from Fort Rachel Place, when you're walking along, the house is way back here because we have to flag around. So it's not like we're like right on the road. We're way back off the road. You know, the distance of twice the width of this house that's right here, off the street. And then you can see here, this is where the stone starts to meander its way up the grade to that facade that would be seen from the west side. So we're quite a distance off of Fort Rachel Place. The road itself, we're quite a distance off of it because of the flag on that lot. So I think it's important to know that that facade is not sitting right out at the road. It's, hold on, I'll just take this right here. You know, just in looking at it, we're around 75 feet off the road.
Measured from where?
Measured from right here. We're way back here on the lot because we're behind this lot right here. And look at this. This is all ledge outcropping right here. So from Fort Rachel Place, you have this, look at this aggressive topo. You've got this aggressive topo that's working its way up, and it's all vegetated very thickly in here. So it's good to note that this is very thick vegetation and it's not on our property, so it can't be touched. So this facade, because this is not the building here, that's the staircase. This facade of the building is behind all of this thick vegetation that you see right here.
where is Frank's house in relation to this? Where are we?
You can see it on that picture. It's the top left under the map. That's the corner of it.
Okay.
Right here, right here.
It's right, yeah, a little south of that.
So he's across the street?
It's right over here, yeah.
Okay.
The property that we approved the driveway for is the intersection of the map that Mark's referring to. So Frank's house sits directly across the street from the white, I don't know, Greek revival-ish house.
Mm-hmm.
And then behind that would then be this house.
Okay.
Why don't you just pull up the street view to show them?
That's what I was going to try to do. So let me go up the street here. So this is Fort Rachel Place, and this is the drive that comes in off the road and goes up into the property. and it's heavily wooded and it goes very aggressively up. But this area where this ledge is going up back here, this is the neighbor's property. So this vegetation will, this is what you're looking at. Really, when you look at this, I don't know that you're going to see the house back there behind, maybe in the winter, but let's go up the street here a little bit more. It's behind.
But that vegetation isn't, Mark. That vegetation is this property. Their property.
Oh, it's not. No.
Their property is the fence line. So the vegetation you were just referring to is number 11s, not number 9s.
Here, you see, here's the driveway, and it leaves right here coming up like this. So this area is on the property, but right here it is not. And this area is vegetated and aggressively climbs up here. Very aggressively.
No, that area is all flat yard for number 9. I almost bought number 9. I did a survey on it. Right there is all now flat and cleared. And that's all number 9 right there. I mean, Frank can tell you he looks at it every day.
Yeah. But that's looking
right there, that's correct. But
that's looking into the property from Fort Rachel Place.
Correct. What I'm saying to you though is when you go to bring the trucks in to build this, the concrete and everything, all that vegetation is going to have to go. You physically cannot get the trucks in. So the screening of the vegetation, which again isn't our responsibility or something that we even have the right to talk about, it isn't even going to be there. It can't be there unless you're going to bring it in, and unless you're going to hand pour it, hand mix it, which is insane.
Well, back to, I mean, it doesn't all have to go, but back to Frank's comment, without a doubt, we can definitely coordinate a very nice landscape completion that would satisfy everybody. That's how these things go.
So maybe it means getting together and coming up with a plan before we just approve it.
Well, I think we have a plan that responds to the client's intentions with the property and takes into account all the regulations and takes into account the handbook of the district and all the many factors that go with it. And I'll rest on that.
Mark, would you do me a favor just because you have this screen? Can you just spin me around so I can see where Frank's house is? Is that it?
No, you have to go the other way.
Is it this?
No, go to your right and then go up the road, heading like. That's Frank's house.
And then turn so I could look at where he is in relation to the proposed project. Sorry.
So we're right here.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So my point, Sarah, though, is you're looking across the neighbor's yard. You're looking at the vegetation, which is not lush. It's just grass on that rock area there. And then you're going to see a structure that's going to rise 40 something feet from the top of that green right there, all in that open area.
Well, I don't disagree with that, but I think that any house that you build on top of this rock is going to be significantly higher than the houses in its close vicinity. And that's just a function of its location. So it's the same with the house at the end of High Street at the corner of Route 1. I mean, it sits up on top of this rock and it towers over the house across the street. But I don't think that the house across the street feels overwhelmed by it because it's got this big change in just natural elevation is already putting that house in the shadow. So
Todd, are you talking about the yellow house or the one over on High Street heading towards like if you're going up the hill and you make a right at the Baptist
I'm
church?
going down the hill.
The one on the
The
right,
one I'm
the yellow
talking
one?
about, and it's the house on the that would be the north, well, the east. Well, I guess sort of what you call that, the north.
The yellow house that looks down on Factory Square?
It's the house that's right on the corner, and it's up on top of the rock there.
Right.
Right at the corner of High Street as you're going down.
On the right.
Yeah, way up there.
Right, and I agree with that. But when that house was built, the Route 1 didn't come down that way. So it was built with the property around it being at a much higher elevation connecting to that property. When Route 1 came through and they cut all that out in 1929 or 24 or whatever it was, now it's sitting up on a rock, but it wasn't sitting up on a rock when it was built.
Well, they did change the grade somewhat. Well, I still stick to what I'm saying, that the elevation is what it is. And so if the house was on the top of that rock and it was 30 feet high instead of 40, it's still going to be towering over everything across the street. And that's just the way it is. That's the topo. So, and you have to get up to the house some way. So he stepped his structure up to get there. And it is set back a significant amount from the street. And I think that's important. You know, some of the stuff on Main Street's right on the sidewalk.
All right.
Main Street. But
Does anyone have any other comments? No? Anybody else in the audience want to speak for or against?
Charles Perini's waving his hand.
Okay. Mr. Perini?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. I had a prepared statement. Well, wait a second. My name is Charles Perini. We live at 168 High Street, and I've restored a number of houses in the historic district. And I've been before your committee many, many times over the last 14 years. I had a prepared statement, but after hearing this long dialogue, I think I should say some things. The first is that we actually looked at this lot as a building site a few years ago, and I did some preliminary design work on it and placed our prospective house in exactly the same spot for the reasons that the architect has mentioned. It would make it very inconspicuous up there. And I say that not being casual. It's an elevation drawing. You all know this very well. An elevation drawing isn't a real drawing. You don't see the perspective. And from Fort Rachel Place, looking up at that big side of the house looking west, it will be almost 100 feet, maybe less, up the hill and about 30 feet high. And so the perspective of that is going to be, the perspective view of that is going to be completely different from that elevation drawing that you're seeing. And I really don't think it will be that obtrusive. And of course, it won't be at all obtrusive from the east side because the rock is in the way. I've done a number of photographs from the river of that rock. And even from the river, it won't be a big problem. Maybe from Fort Rachel, you might be able to see it, but there's a lot, it's not just vegetation. That the topography of that area is, well, it's dramatic. And that's why it's such a nice building lot. But it's also a long way from everything. From Fort Rachel, it's going to be 300 feet. And from the marina. And from the Fort Rachel Place, the house is set way up on top of that hill, and looking up at it in perspective, it's going to be totally different look than what you see in the elevation drawings. And while I'm here, I just want to say, I think the architect, who I don't know, has done a really nice job on this house. And I think it's very fitting and would be appropriate for Mystic and an asset for Mystic. So I just wanted to say that, and I appreciate you letting me talk about it.
Thank you, Mr. Perini. Any other comments? I don't want to miss anybody if there's someone here. Nope. All right. Well, with that, if there's no other comments, I will close HDC. I don't know the number. HDC 20-73. And I will open the public hearings, just for the audience to know during our hearings, only the commission members can speak. All right, so I will open. I lost it. Peter, what is it? Oh, I can't see it. Here, maybe I can get it here. Deliberations on HDC 20-72. This was 72 Gravel Street, Marion David Rodriguez, owners Peter Springsteel, applicant. This was the additional windows and the fencing. Any comments or motions on this particular application?
I would move to approve.
I'll second.
Any comments? All right, all in favor, I'll do a roll call. Moriarty, aye. Ferguson,
Aye.
Levinson,
Aye.
Brady,
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
The application is approved. All right, I'll open deliberations on HDC 20-73, 11 Fort Rachel Place. This is the application that we just heard from Mark Camo. Comments or motions? I appreciated hearing Mr. Perini's comments, especially because he had already seen some site work, and I also appreciated hearing from the neighbor, Frank. I've made my opinion clear in that I think that Mark has met the points that are required to meet in regard to the handbook and new construction. And I think it's a pretty innovative building. Does anybody else have any comments that they would like to make?
Well, I'm kind of familiar with the site too, and I think the fact that it is, the topography is what it is, plus it is far removed from the street. If you look at, if you're standing at the Fort Rachel Place and look at, it's set back way up back above the hill there on top of the rocks. And I would speak in favor of it.
My, oh, sorry. May I
No, go ahead, Bill.
my contention with the design is partially the height, because I remember the rigmarole that Central Block, I mean, not even Central Block, but what Across the River went through about height when Seaport Marine. But the height is secondary. I think the tin roof just opens a slippery slope for future non-historical tin roofs. So that's my contention with the design, is primarily the roof.
I've made my points heard, and I'm not going to do them again, but I just will say that we are opening the door based upon this for future applications that are going to be farther and farther outside the box.
Well, I'm curious to that comment only in the sense of any new construction is opening the door. I mean, any new construction, you can bring anything you want. We're not supposed to keep things specific to any certain area or material. So I would think any new construction, they have the world's their oyster to bring what they want to us.
And so you're not concerned that someone, to Bill's point, doing a remodel or something will then pull?
A remodel is entirely different than brand new construction on an undeveloped site, in my opinion.
So you're saying that your opinion is that someone could not cite to this for a remodel to use these materials or these, well, really materials or architectural elements?
No, I wouldn't say so. This is a brand new lot structure.
So
nothing's been there before.
Only in new construction would it be allowed to go outside the box?
I think that anyone can ask for it, but if you're going to point to precedent, it would have to follow the actual details of the site, which is a site that's brand new construction, that something's never been built on it before.
Now, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. And I'll cite the Oyster Club as an example. The Oyster Club was an addition to a historic building. It's got metal roofs on both sides. It was approved by the earlier Historic District Commission, which had taken a more preservationist bent. And in fact, it was one of the reasons why there was a lot of pressure against them to loosen up and be more forgiving towards other architectural forms. As far as Bill's comment about metal roofs, I beg to differ strongly. A standing seam metal roof is more appropriate on a lot of the houses in downtown Mystic than an asphalt shingle roof. It's more historic. It is not a glaring, in-your-face change. And in fact, I'm out here in Musquamacut in a house with a metal roof, and it is hardly in your face or whatever. And I would add to that if you look at the guidelines for the Historic District Commission, they make specific comments about buildings with mansards. So Eric, your building has a mansard, and they specifically say that you shouldn't use asphalt shingles on a mansard roof because a mansard is a very in-your-face kind of roof, and it should have a material, primarily metal. So what I'm saying about that is I don't have a problem with Eric's asphalt shingle mansard. Well, not too big of a problem. I think it would have been better done in metal, but we approved that. Did we open up the door to a bunch of asphalt shingle mansard roofs? I say no. I say when we look at these designs, each one is evaluated on its own merits. And we aren't opening up Pandora's box to anything by approving a metal roof on this house. And if we get more people coming in with metal roofs, I'm going to vote in favor of most of them because I think they're more appropriate in the sense that what roofing material you pick is not necessarily time designed or time controlled.
I mean, Todd, to your point though, I'm putting a metal roof on the cupola, a standing seam copper roof on the cupola of that building.
Well, that's good, which probably should put one on the mansard. But it doesn't matter. My point is that that's the thing. It doesn't matter. It's a question of taste. And I don't think anything is wholly inappropriate. And I don't think we're opening up any kind of a big problem going forward at all. I applaud this kind of design. I think we need more of this, pushing the envelope out. And you just know I feel that way. So.
And I agree with you. I think what took me back on the metal roof initially was the fact that it's black. I mean, if it was going to be a copper metal roof, okay, I would have been a little more interested. Galvanized potentially too. Can't do anything about color though, so it's not even worth talking about.
Well, for what it's worth, I like the metal roof myself too, so better than the asphalt.
And I would have done metal on the mansard, Todd. It would have been cheaper than the Grand Manor shingles.
So the only other comment that I have, and it's more directed to Mark, is that, you know, I'm sensitive to the neighbors' concerns, and that I very much hope that if this application is passed, that he works diligently with the neighbor to make them feel comfortable with whatever agriculture or screening that would need to be there. So does anybody else have anything before we move? No. All right.
I move that we grant a certificate of appropriateness for HDC 20-73 with the condition that the applicant submit a full list of materials acceptable to the commission after the approval.
Okay. I second. I'll call a roll. Moriarty, aye. Goodman?
No.
I didn't hear you.
No.
Thank you. Ferguson?
No.
Levinson?
Aye.
Brady?
Aye.
The application is approved. All right. Pre-application hearings. Do we have anybody in the audience? No,
Anyone raising hands?
I'm sorry.
I said I don't see anyone raising any hands.
Okay. I just want to make sure I don't miss anybody. There's a couple names that might have just been here. No pre-apps? Going once, going twice? All right. Peter, if you can just let me know if someone does, they're having technical difficulties and do raise their hands.
Will do.
Thanks. All right. Public communications.
None.
None. Okay. So where are we next? I lost my agenda.
Maybe minutes?
Approve, is that what it is? Approval of the minutes? I move to approve the minutes from November 17th, 2020.
Second.
All in favor, I'll do a roll call. Moriarty, aye. Goodman,
Aye.
Levinson,
Aye.
Brady,
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
All right. Old business. Any? Peter? I wasn't at the last meeting, so I don't know.
No, I don't believe we have any. Unless any commission members have anything.
Just a question, but Peter, I don't even know this HTC, but the town hall's closed now, right? The annex.
Correct. For the next 2 weeks.
Can you just keep us posted when it opens back up?
Sure, we'll do.
Just in case anyone asks if they can go file.
We still have the Dropbox outside, so if people have to drop stuff off, you can drop it off at the Dropbox.
Got it.
Any new business?
Can we just go back to Eric's question just for a minute? It really is business as usual. Things can be sent in by mail. If it's an HDC application, they can certainly email them. So there really it should be seamless to the customers, even though they can't walk into the building itself. Just so you can kind of spread that word and people don't have the fear that they're not going to, get their things taken care of.
Yeah, it'd be similar to May and June, the way it was in May and June.
Okay, thank you. The only question, I guess it's probably a public communication. This question is for you, Bill. So I received a letter from Crystal at the town hall. Each year I need to write a letter to the commission for people whose terms are expiring. And for some reason, when she sent me the letter for this year, it had you appointed as an alternate and that your term was expiring this December. Did you receive something along those lines?
That was my understanding, that I was serving a month, and then they said that I would just kind of be added on.
Okay. I was confused when I got that. All right, so I'll write that letter, assuming you do want to serve more than 1 month.
That was hopefully my intention, I guess.
All right, then I will take care of that.
Okay.
Well, can we make Bill a permanent member?
When I write the letter to the commission, I'm going to ask them if they can do that.
I think that was the same problem with me though. Remember, it couldn't move me up because of some, I don't know why. I don't remember now.
Was there someone in your spot? Like, was it maybe Mark who wasn't there and they couldn't push you up even though the permanent member was never there?
That might have been.
No, I had the same problem being moved up. They made me file a whole new application with a new resume and go through a committee interview and the whole 9 yards. So hopefully they won't make Bill go through all that.
It was my understanding I didn't need to when I asked that question.
Yeah, because I didn't have to go through that when they changed, but I did have to get sworn in again. I remember.
I don't know why they would have made you an alternate when there was a permanent member vacancy. That doesn't make tons of sense to me.
Yeah, because I thought I was replacing Heather.
Right, but the notification I got put you as an alternate, which maybe it's just a typographical error. So I'll write the letter and we'll figure it out. All right, but that's all I had. Does anyone have anything else before we move to adjourn? No. All right, then I move to adjourn.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.